the autumn trees blowing. We wander side by side with the spark in our eyes, and the world that feels so wide. Will we find our way through?
Welcome to the National Gamekeepers Organisation newscast, this month brought to you by Pinewood. We're going to be discussing hen harrier reintroduction in southern England, game bird licensing in Wales, wildfire rulings and heather burning, as well as all the relevant stuff that's been going on this month within the organisation. So hope you enjoy the show. The NGO is saddened to hear that Natural England have stopped the funding for the Southern Hen Harrier Reintroduction Project that's been running for several years and was aiming to release hen harriers around Salisbury Plain to boost the population within southern England. The project's been opposed from the very start by the RSPB and other charities who clearly didn't want a boost of population of hen harriers in southern England, but supported by the gamekeepers in the region and up and down the country. Fortunately, it's now going to rely on the grouse moors of England to keep the hen harrier population going, where more hen harriers successfully fledge than anywhere else in the UK. Even Raptor Persecution, who write a blog, and Ruth Tingay, one of the founders of Wild Justice, was applauding the cessation and the stopping of this project, which is interesting for these groups to want to stop more hen harriers being in our skies around Great Britain. Gamekeepers in Britain will continue to do as much conservation work as possible to help species recover. As we know, game management activities help recovery, help species and help habitat.
Morning everyone, Ian Slayton, National Gamekeepers Organisation, Mool and Branch Chair here. Just a little update on the news that Natural England and DEFRA have abandoned the Hen Harrier Southern Introduction project, which is real disappointing news for the NGO, with all the work that's been put in with the estates on the ground to try and spread this bird's sort of national population. Alongside all the great work done in the north with the brood management scheme, showing that gamekeepers are the leading conservationists on the ground with schemes like the brood management, black grouse reintroduction on the North York moors, curlew head starting in the South Downs. So really disappointing that the NGO couldn't work alongside Natural England and DEFRA and reintroduce these rare birds to the lowlands as well as the uplands, improving the national population.
A recent news article on the BBC website with regards to avian influenza and the RSPB's view on licensing the release of game birds in Wales has prompted the NGO to reply. The licensing call for licensing by the RSPB has got nothing to do with conservation in our mind, and everything to do with a callous and calculated attack on game management activities, rural activities, and those of us who work and live and breathe a rural lifestyle. Gamekeepers are an integral part of the rural community, and in rural parts of Wales are vital, providing employment and recreation for many, many people. It's also proven that game management activities increase wildlife, increase biodiversity and improve habitats. So by stopping those would be a blow to the countryside, the habitat, the species and the people of Wales.
This is Richard Bailey from the NGO Mool and Branch. DEFRA have finally announced the results from their consultation that the NGO was involved heavily in from the spring and summer. This means that the licence to burn will be extended to less favoured areas, and deep peat is now any peat depth over 30 centimetres, more than trebling the protected peat areas previously, which was peat over a depth of 40 centimetres and not in less favoured areas. Thankfully, the NGO have been very vocal about the consultation, and throughout the consultation, along with other shooting organisations and the regional moorland groups. We will not sit quietly in the corner observing the destruction of our cherished moors and the specialist species that come here to nest in the springtime. Time will tell, as with other things, within government whether this is one of those rules that they really regret in decades to come. Some groups might see this as a positive for moorland protection, but yet again 2025 has seen the worst year for wildfires, more wildfires and greater areas impacted. So we have to question DEFRA's move on this further protection. Let's just think back to 2021 when DEFRA and Natural England put further restrictions on active moorland land management and the burning regulations under the Heather and Grass Burning Act. Since 2021 we've seen ever increasing amounts of wildfires and the damage this has caused. So further increasing this protection, is it really going to protect moorland and peat? We've just come out of a period of severe drought. The last week or so we have had, in most moorland areas, good numbers of rainfall. But as today we progress into a week of forecasted good weather, the moor behind me has a lot of dead grass on it. This will burn in a couple of days time quite easily, and whilst the peat will not burn, we have just gone through a 4-month period where the peat would have been susceptible for catching light, as we've seen on Langdales. So for the re-wetters we need a combined implications and management regimes which include re-wetting but also include active management on the surface vegetation. For groups and organisations that are putting greater emphasis in trust in re-wetting as opposed to active land management, which includes prescribed burning and cutting as an option, and also grazing, which has added benefits of dunging moorland areas, and also as tick mops, as we see ticks rising at a frightening rate, which have implications not only for bird and wildlife on the moors, but of course for human health, as we welcome more and more people, to our moorland areas.
As we're now at the end of September, we're 1 month into the partridge season, and many grouse shoots have been going for 6 weeks or more. Everyone's really looking forward to getting into the pheasants, and then the bulk of the shooting season commences from the 1st of October. But for some shoots, specifically those operating in England on SACs and SPAs, this just hasn't been possible because of the disgraceful way Natural England have handled the licensing system for the release of game birds for the protection of species on those sites. The NGO and other organisations warned when Natural England were giving the licensing to undertake this activity that there would be issues, and those have proven to be correct. The Game Wildlife Conservation Trust recently published an alternative comparative habitat risk assessment on what might happen to those key species on areas of SACs and SPAs where game management activities are delayed or removed. This was commissioned by the NGO to see and to look at the scientific evidence whether Natural England have made the correct decision. The finding of this report are glaringly obvious to everybody who's a practical conservationist on the ground that Natural England had not made the right decision, and by delaying the release of game birds and in many cases refusing game management activities entirely means these species are going to be threatened. Species such as lapwing, curlew, hen harrier, merlin will now be at greater risk because of Natural England's failure to act properly and proportionately when it comes to game management on certain sites. The NGO are continuing to work with government and trying to get a a complete and proper solution to this problem, working with other partner organisations. Those keepers in affected areas, some have sadly already lost their jobs, and this situation is not acceptable to anybody. We've had some support with politicians, and we're hoping to move this up the chain to the new DEFRA minister. The NGO are delighted that Gamekeeper George Cooper has been awarded the BBC Make a Difference Green Awards in Kent. George has been instrumental into trying to save Minfield Marshes, and his superb conservation work around the area has led this prestigious award to be given to a gamekeeper by the BBC. The NGO Deer Branch have been involved recently in rewriting and updating the Deer Initiative Partnership's best practice guides. These are a series of guides put together to promote best practice within deer management, and covers everything from surveys to gralloching deer and lardering. The NGO's input has been really useful, working with other partners such as BASC, the British Deer Society, the Woodland Trust, etc., on a new approach to best practice within deer management. The guides can be found on the Deer Initiative Best Practice website and can be downloaded for you to use if you're a deer manager. Well worth a look at for everyone involved in deer management, and just one of the activities the NGO Deer Branch has been involved in recently. If you're involved in deer management and a member of the NGO, you can be part of the Deer Branch free of charge. You just need to contact the office to let them know that you'd like to be part of the Deer Branch, and you will receive bespoke deer information via email as and when it's relevant to send out. Been a cabinet reshuffle this month, with Emma Reynolds being appointed as DEFRA Secretary, replacing Steve Reed, and the Farming Minister, Daniel Zeitner, has been replaced by Angela Eagle. The NGO welcomes these two appointments, and we look forward to working with them both in the future and to get the best for the British countryside by explaining to them how game management benefits wildlife and all countryside activities. Working with ministers is really important, and ministerial teams, that they understand and appreciate how the activities of game management can improve the countryside habitat and species survival for everyone in the UK.
Hello, I just want to update everyone on the formal complaint that I made last week on behalf of the NGO. So a social media post was made by the Northumbrian Police and Crime Commissioner, Susan Dungworth. She made this post during Rural Crime Action Week, and the post stated that abusers often use remoteness, legally held firearms and surveillance to control victims. The NGO obviously utterly condones domestic abuse in all of its forms, and directly linking it to legally held firearms is misleading and unfair. It stigmatises responsible, law-abiding certificate holders and undermines the trust between rural communities and the police. As we know, the UK already has one of the most robust, rigorous firearm systems in the world. It includes background checks, GP verification and ongoing police monitoring. And the police have the powers to refuse or revoke certificates immediately, especially where a risk of domestic abuse is identified. So safeguards are already in place, and the police have the authority and responsibility to act. Suggesting otherwise misrepresents the system and damages confidence in it. Since making my complaint, I've received two responses. Firstly, Adrian Davis, who is the Policing Standards Manager and NPCC Strategic Coordinator for Firearms Licensing. He responded really swiftly, saying the wording of the post, particularly the word often, was unhelpful, and he welcomed our stance on domestic abuse and family turmoil. He also confirmed that he would be raising this matter further. 6 days later, I had a response from Philip Golding, who is the Chief Executive of the Association of Police and Crime Commissioners. He replied on behalf of the chair, who I escalated the complaint to. He explained the APCC has no statutory remit over individual commissioners, but he did confirm that Northumbrian's PCC's office intends to remove the post. Regrettably, I've still not had any direct response from Susan Dungworth or her office, other than the initial automatic receipt. But she has made public comments to the Shooting Times, and I find this lack of courtesy really disappointing. However, going forward, we hope that this can be an opportunity to strengthen constructive dialogue with the Police and Crime Commissioners, the APCC, and the Rural Crime Network, just to ensure both public safety and the rural community are properly supported. And legally held gun ownership in this country isn't unfairly stigmatised.
Well, today the NGO are in Marford Mill, the headquarters of BASC, where we've got a meeting with City and Guilds, as among other stakeholders, to talk about the new gamekeeping Level 3 qualification, which will be available to students in colleges. It's really important that we keep these qualifications going, and we have an entry for young keepers to become established gamekeepers to protect Britain's wildlife. It's one of the many things that the NGO training department undertake over the course of a year to get qualifications right and suitable for people to enter into the sector.